Forgot to unmute. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Scripting Fridays. On Fridays, we dig deep, and basically our goal is to get you to where you can pull a string and know exactly what to say in every circumstance. And today we're focused on buyers. And Suma, thank you for turning on your camera.
I was in the other channel, yeah.
But what I was hoping you'd be willing to do is we're going to do a role play and you're going to be the buyer. Would you be okay with that?
Yeah, sure.
And I can ad lib a little bit, but I think it'd be more impactful. So that's the mission for today. We got a request for literally walking through what I call our VIP buyer service. And hopefully you'll find this valuable because this approach has allowed me to sign 100% of the buyer agency agreements that I've put in front of people literally for 17 years. And I know the NAR settlement has made it now where in pretty much all states we have to get these signed. So what I'm sharing with you, we've been using buyer agency agreements since 2007. So now 18 years. So this is the method I use. And the only difference between what I've done for 18 years and what I do now since the NAR settlement is I have one more reason for them to sign. And in the state of Washington, where I'm sitting, that is Senate Bill 5191. And I say those words very specifically, and you should look up whatever regulation or law that's in your market that's telling you have to do this, whether it's an MLS rule, a state law like I have here in Washington, or some other, NAR requirement. Quote that, because when you're talking to people, it basically turns it around so that it's not even really you asking, you're being forced to. And I'll tell you kind of an interesting tidbit. I use that dialogue for Google leads. And I'm pausing for effect because think about that. That's an inbound phone call. I've spoken with them for 15, 20 minutes max for the first time, and they still sign because the law requires it, right? So this is very effective, but I want to show you the mechanics of it. And I'm going to do a screen share, but it's going to be a little crowded because I'll walk you through what are the tools that I use, and then I'll put on the screen what I'm using when I'm using it. So let me start with kind of an inventory of what I use. And the first thing that I do, I have in my shelf over here that you can't see, a stack of folders, and they're labeled buyer folder or seller folders. In those folders, I don't know if you can see up here that the title, it says buyer left side. And this one says buyer right side. So if you look down here, the right side is 17 pages in length and the left side is 42 pages in length. So it's kind of a thick folder by the time you print out 60 some odd pages, right? But what I do before I leave for the appointment is I grab the folder, and you can see on the screen right now the cancellation guarantee. The first 4 pages of the left side are the contracts, right? So there's the buyer brokerage agreement here for Washington State. And then it goes into some fun stuff, right? So what I do, first 5 pages, I should say, is I take these first 5 pages and I pull them out of the folder. And I actually put them next to the folder facing down. So if this is the writing side, I'll put the white side against the folder so that when I set the folder down, it's face down on the table, right? And my preference is to do these meetings face to face, and you're going to see why as we work through this over Zoom. It's not as easy, although I certainly can not show you those pages, right? But that's what's the key is I'm going to pull those out. I'm going to put them face down, and then on this side, when I first get to the meeting, I pull this sheet out And if I want to, there's a map in here, right? And then it goes into a purchase and sale, and you're going to see why there's a purchase and sale. But I'll pull the first page and the map so that I can talk to you and understand your criteria and all that, right? The other things that we're going to use today that you're going to see are the dialogues and scripts that I use. You're going to be able to follow along as Suma and I do this role play, and then the actual buyer presentation. So those are the three things, four if you count left and right side, but the folder contents and the presentation are all I need to go to the meeting. And then the thing on the left side of the screen right now is what we're going to say. Okay, so let me make that a little bit easier for you to read. Much. So when I get to the meeting, it's, hi, Suma, thank you so much for meeting with me. I'm excited to learn about your plans and your goals. And I pull the folder out of my laptop bag and I put it face down and I open it and I pull out this sheet and the map, right? And the thing I want you to remember when you're using this, we call this the requirements and nice to haves, right? As you can see on the screen. Well, I'll explain to people, I want to understand what are the features of the home that you are focused on. And then I'll ask you, okay, is that a requirement or a nice to have? And a lot of times the buyer will say, well, I feel like it's a requirement, but I guess I'm not sure. And I'll sort of relieve them of their stress, which is, hey, you know what I found over years of doing this is a lot of things that start as a nice to have become a requirement, or vice versa, depending on how abundant they are out in the marketplace. So you're welcome to just dream and call everything a requirement if you want. But when we get out there, we may find that one of your requirements is not super common, right? Another dialogue that's very effective is real estate really is about compromise. And what I've found is a lot of buyers might have 10 or 12 things that they really, really want. And there is no perfect house out there. But one house might have 10 of them of the 12, and the 2 that it's lacking are really important to you. And the other house might have 9 of them, but it has those 2 really important things, and that house is better, right? So don't be concerned that we're going to have difficulty in finding the right house. Just recognize that there may not be the absolutely perfect house that has all these things on it. The other thing I want you all to be thinking about is be inquisitive. Ask a lot of questions, right? The number one most important subject for anybody is themselves. And this is a wonderful opportunity for you to ask all kinds of questions and get to know them personally, right? And think about that, right? Because what I'm saying is, don't just ask bed, bath, and square footage. Ask, oh, you want a fence. Is that because you have a dog? What breed is it? What's his name? I love dogs. I'll even I don't know if you guys can see it, but
Yeah.
my dog is on my phone, right? So I'll pull up my phone. I'll go, I love dogs. And they'll be like, oh yeah, we have a Rottweiler. Oh my God, I love Rottweiler. Whatever. By the end of this conversation, I will have filled in the whole front and taken notes on the back, because I now know how old your kids are and where they go to school, or if they're getting close to college, what colleges they're interested. And I'm taking notes the whole way because I want to get to know the kids as much as I want to get to know you. I've got a client right now. They bring their kids to every showing, and their kids like me because I know about them before I even met them. And I say things like, how are you enjoying band? Oh my God, I'm terrified of that. I would never do that, or whatever, right? So have an inquisitive mind. This part of this meeting will typically take 2/3 to 3/4 of the total time. because this is the most important step, right? Then you say, okay, now that I understand your criteria, and by the way, this sort of home isn't going to be very difficult for us to find. I want to give them hope, right? That's the number one thing you can give to any client is hope, something to look forward to. Now I just want to educate you on the law of agency, right? And I shift to my laptop. When I left my office, I had my laptop open and this PowerPoint open, and I just close my laptop so it goes to sleep in that condition, so that when I open it up, it actually activates the PowerPoint, right? And I kind of messed up because this is actually a PowerPoint. I wanted you guys to see some of the animations, but I actually use Adobe because it has a keyboard shortcut. And I think the keyboard shortcut for PowerPoint is F8, is it? No, it is not. Anyway, put your presentation in full screen mode using the keyboard shortcut, because that will convey to your audience that you're tech savvy in a split second, right? Like in Adobe, it's Control L. So in this amount of time, it goes full screen mode, and the person watching you goes, huh, he knows a lot about computers, right? And of course, I can't remember what it is for PowerPoint. Let's see. Usually it'll tell you. Here it goes. Shift F5. There you go. So I could go Shift F5. Apparently I can. Anyway, enough about that. You guys figure it out on your machine. Go into full screen mode and say, now I just want to explain to you my VIP buyer system. And the first thing that I'll point out is, since I have never put it in full screen mode, renting, right? And depending on who I'm talking to, I'll say either, you guys already know this, renting is silly. You're paying down someone else's mortgage balance for their benefit, right? I'll be dismissive and move on. Or if they are a first-time homebuyer, I'll dig in and elaborate. So it just depends on who my audience is. I will go through this in 3 seconds, or I will spend 15 or 20 seconds, depending, right? Let's assume it's a first-time homebuyer. I don't know if I assume you're aware of this, but as you may or may not know, when you make your rental payment, you're paying off someone else's house. And did you know that the number one wealth creation tool in the United States, the thing that creates the most millionaires, is housing? So kudos to you for deciding to make this step, because you're on the path towards wealth. And that's awesome. Yes, Linda, you have your hand up.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't find my mic. Is that chart in that EXP folder, or is this your chart?
This is my chart, but I'll send all this to Autumn so that she can share it out to you guys. And you are welcome to change the logo and make it yours.
So to explain that chart, because that's great. That's what somebody told me to get. They didn't have a chart, but they kind of told me that, and that gave me an aha moment. So if you're explaining this further, you're saying, okay, I see monthly rent is, and then this how much you're paying them. Okay.
7 times 12 is 8,400.
Yeah.
9,600, and over 20 years, right? And we all have had clients that we helped them buy their first house when they were in their 60s, right? And it's a little bit heartbreaking, because you're like, oh my God, such a missed opportunity. But you're not going to say that. You're just going to applaud them for finally taking the step. So, read the room. And I'm glad Linda asked that, because you don't know, right? people will tell you this is going to be our first home. That's when I go, okay, I'm going to make sure they fully appreciate what a great and magnificent step this is for them, right? Then I go, and you're doing it at a perfect time. You know, in every market, there is a massive transfer of wealth, right? So you just have to understand that and explain why is that today? And today I would say it's a massive transfer of wealth because the people that are selling are having to negotiate. It's kind of a crazy thing right now. We're in what I would call a surreal market because by definition, it's a seller's market, but it's behaving like a buyer's market. And if they look at me inquisitively, I'll explain what the definition is, and I'll say it now just so you guys have it in your arsenal. A seller's market is defined by months of inventory. And if you have 6 months or more, that's a buyer's market. But if it's under 6 months, that's a seller's market. And here in King County, where I'm sitting, we have 2.4 months of inventory. That's a strong seller's market, right? But because of rates and tariffs and general uncertainty, buyers are waiting. They think prices are going to go down, and they're nuts. That is literally economically impossible if you have a shortage of inventory. So talk to your buyers, explain why now's a great time, because you have a seller's market, but you can still negotiate aggressively with the sellers, right? Good deals do go fast though. So I'll qualify that, all of that with, if you find a turnkey house that just came on the market, you could be in a multiple offer situation. But guess what? I'm an expert at winning those too. Understand your stats because you can sprinkle statistics into this conversation. One of the statistics I use in that circumstance is, did you know last year, my team and I had 36 closings where we were in a multiple offer situation and were not the highest bidder, but still won. That's the type of skill and benefit that you're going to get to enjoy by working with me. Well, that's pretty compelling, wouldn't you say? Right? Time's precious. Why put off? Right? And then I'll just kind of blast through and get to the next slide. There are two types of agency. Are you aware of that? And they'll say yes, or they'll say no. A lot of them say no because they know about real estate agency, but they don't know about buyer and seller agency. And there is a difference, right? So this is my opportunity to explain and educate. Now, as you can see on the screen, the word fiduciary is in quotations. That's just to remind me to not say that word because most people don't know what the hell that means, right? So I just changed that to legal obligation, right? So pretend they say no, and you say, well, first thing is seller agency, or maybe you've heard the term listing broker. What that means is that agent has the legal obligation to protect the seller's interests. That means sell the house for the most amount of money with the least amount of repairs. And I use my hands to demonstrate the difference between seller agency and buyer agency, right? And I'll even use imagery to help them understand that. I want you to think of a seller's agent. When you're driving down the street and you see that sign in the ground, think of that like a flag and a stake in the ground, and the listing broker standing there with his chest puffed out to protect the seller. And then along I come, a buyer's agent. I have the legal obligation to protect your interests. That means help you buy it for the lowest amount of money with the most amount of repairs. Does that make sense? And they go, yeah. And this is the key dialogue. So now that you understand that, what do you want to do? Would you rather have free professional representation, or do you want to go it alone? And I don't know if you saw my screen, but I lean in, I lower my voice an octave, I make it sound more ominous. I want them to have a mental image of vultures circling overhead, right? Because then what they'll say is, well, that's a pretty obvious choice. Free legal representation versus going it alone. Huh. What would I do? Free, professional representation, right? Then I close my laptop and I go, I'm excited to be working with you. And I shake their hand. Right? I don't know if you noticed. This slide deck has 36 slides. I have never gone past slide number 12, right? I don't even know what, I think I've seen slide 5 once by accidentally hitting the keyboard, but that's slide 5, right? This is where you would actually have to start selling why you want buyer representation. But that dialogue that I just said, which do you want to do? Do you want free professional representation, or do you want to go it alone? 100% of the time, they say free sounds better. Okay. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, I'm not allowed to say the word free. Qualified. How many times in each of your careers have you had a buyer pay your commission? Since the NAR settlement has changed this dynamic. I know in some markets it's more common. I'm still at 0. I would rather take 1% than break the streak of never having my buyer pay it. Now, could that change in the future? Absolutely. The whole market and the whole industry is changing. So might I have to change what I'm saying? Sure. But as of today, I know I'm not supposed to say the word free, but I do, because no one's listening to me, and I'm recording this, so that's probably not smart for me to say. I'm changing it effective today. I'll say it's free because I've been 100% successful in getting the seller to cover my fee. That's the only difference, right? So once I close the laptop, I'll share my screen and I'll show you that checklist again. Then I go to the folder, right? So let's see. I said legal obligation. I said stake in the ground. I didn't say the seller's pool of money. And that's not by accident, because before NAR, I would say the cool thing is the seller sets aside a pool of money to cover the commissions for the real estate brokers, both their own broker and the buyer's broker. So that's why you don't have to pay. But I don't say that anymore. That is a change, right? So this S, right, means slides. F means folders, right? So now we're going to move to the folder. And let's start with the right side. And I'll do the split screen thing, so you can see the papers, right? So the first one says the 3 parts to an offer, right? And remember, I've now removed all of these pages. So when I go to the folder, this is now the first page, right? And I explain, hey, Suma, I'm actually going to give you this folder. It's a resource kit for you, and it includes a purchase and sale agreement. And the reason I include the purchase and sale is I want you to have the opportunity to read it before we're in the situation where there's pressure to hurry up and write an offer. And that is a possible scenario in this market. So I'd rather give it to you now so that you get a chance to read it. And I don't do this, but I'm going to click ahead to the next page so you can see why someone might want to read this, right? I mean, that's a lot of words, and I'm going to ask you to sign something. I would rather, even if you don't read it, I want you to feel like, hey, he thinks I'm reading it. That's great, right? Because your client knows that you're never going to ask them to sign something that you yourself haven't read. I have these forms memorized, right? And so do most of you because you've used them for so long. You know the computation of time clause and where it is and what it says, or, market it, or, the type of title policy that you're going to get and where that clause is, all these things. But what this does by just showing the first page is it opens the door for me to start explaining, did you know that there are 3 parts to an offer? Now, the first part is a purchase and sale agreement that protects your interests. So I'm going to write this offer with your interests in mind, and I'm going to put in the offer parachute points. I use that phrase for contingencies because it's more descriptive, right? And I'm going to include parachute points like an inspection contingency or a financing contingency. Anything that you need or want, we'll put those in, right? That's part number 1. Part number 2 is the earnest money deposit. Have you ever heard that term before? Yeah, I think I have, or no, what does that mean? It's a deposit that's made in earnest to demonstrate to the seller that you're serious and want to buy their house. And I make the point at this point in the conversation of how big it needs to be. And I'll say what's typical in our market is 2 to 3% of the purchase price. So depending on what we're looking in, that could be 15,000 or 20,000 or something like that. If they cringe, I'll explain that you could go down to 1%, but that's a weakness. So we'd rather not do that if you're able. This is also the place in the conversation where I can identify, is your money in stock? Because if it is, it takes 3 days to settle the sale of stock or equities, right? So I'll explain that. I'll make sure they know that so that when we write the offer, I'll make sure the earnest money's due in 5 days so that you have time to sell your Microsoft stock or whatever it is, right? So we talk through earnest money. Then the third part of the offer is the pre-approval letter. This is actually the second time I'm going to plug my preferred lender. And I say the second time because if we had truly gone through the requirements and nice to haves, right here, where I asked for their ideal payment range, and I'll actually call it, do you have a maximum payment that you want to keep this under? They'll say, yeah, we want to keep it under $3,000 or $2,500 or whatever. Great. Have you already talked to a lender? Yes. We talked to Wells Fargo. This is my chance to sell my preferred lender. Great. I'm so glad to hear that. I don't know if you've considered this, but have you considered shopping to see if you can find a better rate? I have a preferred lender that is really good at this and has better rates than Wells Fargo. Right? If they say, yeah, but the Wells Fargo loan officer is my sister.
Yeah.
I'm going to back off, right? Because I don't want the buyer to think Ed has to use his own lender. He's not going to use my sister, so we're not going to use Ed. I can work with any lender. I was a lender. I don't have a problem with that. But I'm going to push my lender, and this is the first place that I start to push it, right? That's why you see lender plug number 2 over here, is because once we get into the folder and we're looking at the purchase and sale, I'm able to say, do you want me to connect you with my preferred lender? If you mentioned your sister, I'm not even bringing it up anymore. But if you haven't, I can sell it again. There's actually 3 places where I can plug the lender if you need some persuading, but I'm going to pull the plug if you're related to the lender, right? Then I move to the left side of the folder, and I actually start from back to front because it's kind of easier. So let me go here. All right. The first thing in the very back is our Washington State Law of Agency pamphlet. And these are all stapled together individually. So I want you to imagine doing it like this, right? If you're folding it over and unfolding them one at a time from the back, you're saying, okay, here's what's in this resource guide. The first thing is the Law of Agency pamphlet. The state requires that I include that. And that speaks to what we were just talking about on the in the PowerPoint, right? The two different types of agencies. So this just defines it. I've also got in here imagine this would go faster if you flipped it, right? Yeah. My easy guide to home buying. If you're ever interested to just kind of get a home buying 101 course, you can read this. You can also just ask me because I've done this many, many times, but it's in there for your benefit. There's also how to manage your credit score. If you're not familiar with that, there's some tips and tricks in there to help you raise it, right? We've got a glossary of common terms. I'm trying at all times, I'm saying this to you guys, not to them. I'm trying at all times to speak in plain English, right? If I start saying LTVs and DTIs and, riparian rights and all this crap, their eyes are going to gloss over, right? So I try and use layman type terms. So now when I get to this, I go, here's a glossary of terms. I am going to try to always say things in a way that you can understand them. But if I don't, for some reason, just let me know, because that means I forgot or I missed something, and I'll restate it in a way that's in plainer English. But this might be helpful to you, right? If you want to get familiar with those terms. Then I say, this one, sorry, you guys are blocking. Yeah, what to say at an open house, right? So this is just what to say at an open house. If you happen to go into a house without me, just let them know that you're working with an agent. And they'll leave you alone. They'll still answer your questions. Their job is to sell that house. So hopefully they'll do a good job of that, right? I also have the perfect purchase guarantee. So here's how the perfect purchase guarantees works, right? Have you ever bought a blender at Costco and it didn't work when you got it home? What would you do? Take it back, right? And I go, what if you bought a house and the day after closing the furnace failed? What are you going to do? And they go, take it back? And I go, I wish, right? But you can't. So what we do is actually give you a perfect purchase guarantee. What that means is if for any reason the home is no longer perfect, like let's say we find you the perfect house and a month after closing, a rock band moves in next door and plays loud music all hours of the night. That home is no longer perfect for you. I will sell that home for free and help you buy another one. And they go, wow, if nobody else does that, that's correct. We are unique in what we do, right? And I made a mistake. The blender analogy is not what I say at this point. It's the rock band story, right? The blender analogy is for the warranty. So block that one out. Autumn, edit that, would you? So still scrolling forward, right? We also have our barbecue clause. You don't have to do this. It's a powerful marketing tool. I recommend it if you're not doing it. Basically, we're going to throw a party at their new house for them and all their friends. And guess who sends the invites? Me. And so guess who gets all the friends' contact information?
Yeah.
Me, right? We've done this many times. It's helped us explode our database of Sphere. And it's a powerful tool that you can use. Screen grab it if you want, make it your own, right? Then I go to, absolutely. We buy the food, we buy the alcohol, We rent the plates and silverware, and we've even brought in a cook.
Wow.
How valuable is bringing 20 new people into your database that are all of this similar age and probably thinking about buying, right? So something to consider. And that's why I qualified it, Linda. You don't have to implement this, but it's a powerful tool.
Yeah, but it's expensive. But yeah, I see. Yeah, I get it. I just I'll aspire to that goal.
Yeah. Let's build your income first so that you can then do that. Do it when you have the 7-figure sale and you want more 7-figure clients, right?
Yeah, especially if you're buying alcohol. That's expensive.
All right. But you know, when I grab that folder and I leave, I can pull that out and not provide it in this meeting, right? Like that's the beautiful thing is you can pick and choose when to put that in. So now the next step for me, because I've shown you the whole folder, is I'm going to go to the agreements, right? That's this last section,
Cancellation.
right? So the reason the cancellation agreement is first is that's the easiest one to get them to sign. So what I say is, this is our cancellation agreement. What it says is you can fire me at any time, but please don't fire me. This is how I feed my kids, is what I usually say. If you don't have kids, you can say this is how I feed my family. And the beautiful thing about this is I have a pen in my hand. I sign it. I slide it across the table and I hand them the pen. Now I've got the pen in their hand. That's not by accident, right? I've given them the easiest thing on the planet to sign because it's something that allows them to fire me. So they're not going to be hesitant to sign it. And I just got that pen into your hand, right? Then the next thing I do is I show them, I actually take it after they've signed it and I fold it in half, right? And I stuff it in the back of the folder and I say, I'm going to put this back here because you're not going to need this, but it's in here if you do. And we all giggle, right? Like, oh yeah, I see what you're doing, right? Some of them are like, you actually didn't put it in the folder, did you? You stuffed it into the garbage. And I laugh and I show them, no, it's in there, right? So then we go to the next slide, which is what I call, this is our 12 promises. This is the VIP buyer addendum. And you see those 12 points, right? And I'm holding it upside down and I'm just going through them. We're going to help you find the best financing, right? We're going to give you regular updates from our profiling service so you know about new properties as they come on the market. We'll arrange private showings for any property that you're interested in. When you find one that you like, we'll help you design a strategy to help you get it, right? We'll then prepare the offer with all the terms that we want, present the offer on your behalf. We'll recommend extremely confident affiliates like inspectors, be available to answer any questions at any time. And when I say that on number 8, I usually say, what's your preferred means of communication? Do you like texting? Do you prefer WhatsApp or Facebook message, whatever, right? I want to know because I want to communicate with you the way you want to be communicated with. And here's the best part. You're never under any obligation to purchase anything. And you go, wow. And then we give you 3 bonuses. The first one is our free home warranty. We give this to all of our buyers. That's when I use the blender analogy, right? You're also going to get our perfect purchase guarantee, which I've already shown you. That's where we'll sell your home for free, right? And then you also have already signed the cancellation guarantee. Now, all this language down here says is what I get paid and by whom. And you guys will notice this says 4% and $5.95. That's what I get people to sign. And it's because price is only an issue in the absence of value, right? So here's what I say about this. I go, here's what this bottom paragraph says. It says, my fee, so that you know about it. You know, for a number of years, buyers never knew what their brokers were making. And I don't think that's right. Thank God that they started to bring back transparency. Now, as an aside, the Northwest MLS where I am, they still show the buyer brokerage commission in the MLS. I know in a lot of your markets, they don't. I think that's bullshit. The consumer deserves to know. And NAR missed the target dramatically. Like, I'm passionate about how badly they messed that up. And I'm a member. But you took us back 35 years. 1997 was when they passed the law in my state that it has to be disclosed.
Wow.
That you just drove us back to the dark ages, right? So anyway, here's what I get paid, and it's paid by the seller. And that if they say now with their awareness, they might say, well, what if the seller doesn't pay? I'll say, I'm never going to let the commission stand in the way of you getting the perfect house. And they go, oh, cool. Thank you. Right? Then I pull out the Form 41 is what we call it, the buyer brokerage services agreement. But here's how I frame it. I say, this is the agreement that holds me accountable to those 12 promises. So what am I doing with that sentence? I'm literally turning it around, because think about it. If you're not using buyer agency or hadn't been until the rules changed, the main reason people didn't is they felt like it handcuffed the buyer to them. The way I say it, it's handcuffing me to the buyer. And that's the way the buyer hears it when I say, this is the agreement. I don't say contract, I say agreement that holds me accountable to those 12 promises. And then what I do is I draw their attention to the important stuff, because I don't want them to feel like they have to read it. They're welcome to read it, but I want them to realize what it says on the most important stuff, right? So let me zoom in a little bit so you guys can see. What I do, I write it for 365 days. And this is pre-filled out when I do this. So I circle it and I say, I've written this for a year so that you and I are never under the pressure of this agreement expiring while we're trying to write an offer. Right? And they go, oh, okay. And I go, plus it's cancelable at any time anyway. I could write it for 10 years. It wouldn't matter, right? I don't say that, but I could, right? Then it says Ed Laine right here. I make it exclusive, right? So I'll circle that. This is an exclusive agreement. You're agreeing to work with me exclusively. Do you have any issue with that? Oh, I want to work with 7 brokers. Then I'm not going to be one of them. We can talk about that next week, how we do the takeaway close, right? And then down here it says 4% plus $5.95 admin. And then they initial it, and then they sign it. And I also put right here, VIP buyer addendum attached, so that they know the 12 promises are being included, right? And that's it.
Excellent.
It's the $5.95 in admin. What's that?
That's to pay for my gas, Linda. I don't do this anymore, but I used to ask for that in the meeting. I'd say, and this $5.95 is paid up front, and I'll get the seller to reimburse you for it. So I just got $600 to pay for my gas. But now I don't do that. I just get the extra money at the closing table. And just so you guys understand that the Senate Bill 5191 here in Washington says we can't get anything more than what's on that form. So if someone balks at it, I tell them Senate Bill 5191 says I can come down, but I can't go up. So I err on the high side. And then once we find a house, depending on what the circumstance is and how much they're offering, I'll either ask for it or I'll wave it down to meet it. Like if it's a listing that's brand new on the market and we're in a multiple offer situation, I'm not going to let 4% and $595 cause our offer to not be accepted, right? But it's better to err on the high side. And if your law is written similarly, you should consider doing that as well. Once we're done with the paperwork, it's bam fam. You guys all know what that means?
No.
Bam fam. Book a meeting from a meeting. So we don't leave this meeting without the first showing appointment in both of our calendars. And you guys should use Bam Fam in everything you do, whether it's a phone call with a lead, talk about when we're going to talk next, or a meeting with a client, when are we going to meet next? Like Bam Fam your way through life, and you'll find deals close faster because you never have that like lingering open-ended situation.
That's my new motto. Bam fam my way through life.
I love it. I'm getting some bumper stickers made and I'll send them out to you guys.
It's cute.
We ran a little bit long, and Suma, after all that, I didn't even like make you role play with me.
No, excellent. I got it. No. It's
Okay.
definitely I will say yes for this presentation,
Good.
Yeah.
I appreciate you saying that.
Excellent.
Hopefully this helps a lot of people because
Yeah.
we're in a new world, and I know it can be intimidating if it's not been a practice for you. Just know that there's some schmuck up in Seattle that has gotten this thing signed 100% of the time for 18 years. So it works pretty well.
Yeah.
Before you go, can you show, I wasn't looking at my screen when you showed me where to get that buyers and EXP, your buyer's guide. You were, I heard you say,
That's my guide.
oh, that's your guide. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So everything I showed you, I'll share as a PDF, and you can block out my logo or name or whatever and make it yours. I'll send it all to Autumn. And then do you guys all know how to reach out to Autumn and ask for stuff?
Oh, no. What was email?
So we'll also attach it to the show notes. So when this is posted on our website in the next few days, we'll attach the PDF to the show notes.
There you go. Even
So go to the Agent Collective website.
yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
And so you can also re-look at all of it again.
Yeah, the recording will be there, and then the supporting documents, and I'll put my email in the chat. If you guys ever need any help or support or whatever, that's what I do. I coach and train brokers to kick ass. All right. So feel free to reach out anytime, and I hope to see you guys next Friday. Next Friday, should we, like I mentioned in the conversation, we'll cover the takeaway close. Is that good enough? Or
Sure, whatever. Yeah, it's good.
all right. That's just to give you a teaser. That is what you do with investors when they don't want to be loyal. All right. Thank you all. I'm glad you found it helpful,
Thank you.
and I hope you have an awesome day and a great weekend.
Thank you.
Bam fan in my way.
Go Bam Fam your way through life, Linda.
Bam.
See you later.
If you'd like more information or to get connected to the Agent Power Huddle, join our free Facebook group. This call was designed for the agents in our EXP organization, but open to any agent from any brokerage. If you're a guest and you're interested in learning more about EXP or our specific resources within the Agent Collective, reach out to the person who invited you to this call to get more info. Produced by the Agent Collective Media Network.